This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
Introduction. Globalization has been a lengthy and frightening concern for the citizens of the United States. Even though the problem did not affect everyone in the United States, most individuals in the middle and lower classes have been affected by issues linked to globalization. There is growing uncertainty in industrialized countries about whether globalization means more opportunity or more risk. Thus, the issue of globalization has been a concern for the United States well before the 20th century. This essay will explore four perspectives of globalization: the transformationalist perspective, the skeptical perspective, the hyperglobalist perspective, and the constructivist perspective. General background information about globalization. Globalization concerns big corporations that establish relationships with other countries and do commerce that benefits both. Different countries benefit differently from globalization, which creates different opinions. The largest average income gains are found in Switzerland and Japan, where they rose by an average of €1,900 and €1,500 per capita and year, respectively. Naturally, the primary proponents of policies promoting unlimited freedom of economic activities are those who stand to benefit the most, with transnational corporations serving as direct beneficiaries. There are thousands of transnational corporations, TNCs, globally, such as international business machines in the electronics sector and McDonald's and Coca-Cola in the food and beverage sector. The global development of TNCs and operators aids developed countries in consolidating and strengthening their influence in other states. As a result, governments benefit significantly from it, and it is unsurprising that they fully support their TNCs' operations in other nations. The perspectives on globalization include the transformationalist perspective, the skeptical perspective, the hyperglobalist perspective, and the constructivist perspective. Proponents of each of these perspectives see globalization and its processes differently. From a hyperglobalist perspective, individuals are typically excited about globalization and its prospects. According to the hyperglobalist, transnational commercial networks of industry, trade, and finance circumvent nation-states, rendering them and their governments powerless to regulate market forces properly. The multinational company has exceeded that state and helped by increasing economic mobility, causing the government to be more pro-business and adopt free market policies. Hyperglobalist perspective. According to the hyperglobalist perspective, people have achieved the end of geography, at least from the standpoint of the nation-state. Economic activity is free to move from one place to another internationally, located wherever the prices, regulatory environment, and infrastructure are most conducive to business. Globalization is irreversible and is seen positively according to this perspective. It is because it is considered a method of boosting the economic well-being of all people by permitting more effective resource allocation through the market and free commerce. At the same time, it is perceived to lessen government intrusion in people's lives, leading to more liberty and individual independence. The skeptical perspective. The skeptical perspective individuals draw upon various evidence that globalization is overstated, that it is a myth, as are those perceived benefits under globalization that the hyperglobalists present. Skeptical perspective proponents present three essential claims. First, they contend that the world economy was more globalized from 1890 to 1914 than today in terms of commerce. Second, they argue that the headquarters of the vast majority of multinational companies, MNCs, are still firmly embedded in particular nation-states, where you will also find a high share of assets and operations. They claim that most investment and trade still occur between mature economies and nations or within macro regions such as the European Union and Southeast Asia. From the skeptic perspective, globalization is viewed as a helpful political fiction to bolster the claims of free marketers and neoliberals over those who argue for more significant government intervention and involvement as representatives of the people. third world countries are not being integrated into the global economy with the same benefits as first world countries. They claimed that any growth in global economic integration that does not include governmental involvement or international collaboration would expand the gap between the rich and poor. Transformationalist perspective. Transformationalist perspectives, like skeptics, recognize that globalization is a long-term historical process that began with the colonial expansion of Western European governments in the 16th century. They differ from skeptics in their belief that the global economy is undergoing significant qualitative changes that redefine relationships between governments, firms, and communities. Transformationalists realize, in contrast to hyperglobalists, that the impacts of globalization are not as simply quantifiable. Transformationalists reject the hyperglobalists' end of geography argument. Globalization does not make all locations the same. Instead, it creates new types of differences. Constructivism perspective. Constructivism is when individuals think of the social environment through symbols, language, pictures, and interpretation. It is the product of a certain kind of awareness and how it is expressed. A culture's more profound social, economic, and cultural impacts may be traced back to second-order systems like production and government. Societal actors construct their reality by thinking about it and communicating it with one another, which is the focus of constructivist theory. People can form their views of the world and social norms via discussion and symbolic interactionism. Both the mind and the body are involved in the study of social geography. Conclusion. Globalization is a long-term trend that is shifting and may be slowing. There are benefits and drawbacks to globalization's promotion of more open borders and free commerce. The different perspectives on globalization include the transformationalist perspective, the skeptical perspective, the hyperglobalist perspective, and the constructivist perspective. Globalization disproportionately impacts poorer and more vulnerable socioeconomic groups, especially developing countries. As a result, these organizations and nations must acquire a critical awareness and assessment of the nature and process of globalization and its societal repercussions. Individuals, corporations, and governments must evaluate all sides of the globalization perspective. This essay on 4 perspectives on globalization was written and submitted by a student just like you. The Ivy Panda Samples database hosts thousands of works similar to this one, on various subjects. Visit ivypanda.com to find what you are looking for.